Hi, everybody. This is Adam Elenbaas from Nightlight Astrology. And today is April 24th, 2019. I'm doing a follow-up video from yesterday's to add to yesterday's video, which I did on birth chart demonstration. So yesterday I did a birth chart demo looking at topics of money and wealth. And today I'm going to follow up by telling you some of the results after hearing back from the volunteer client. So, excuse me, I'm going to go ahead and share the chart on the screen where you can see it. And I'm going to just kind of share with you the results, trying to make things a little anonymous. So yesterday we mentioned, for example, that Pluto and Saturn are coming through to conjoin Saturn and Jupiter in the fourth house. If you didn't watch the first video, go back and check it out. It's birth chart demonstration, foundations, and money. And Saturn, Jupiter in the fourth house, we mentioned as connected to a more traditional form of wealth or support that's probably substantive, with Jupiter in its fall, with a Jupiter return approaching, with where Jupiter will be in its fall, with a Saturn return, with Saturn-Pluto conjoining that Saturn-Jupiter conjunction, that all of that would spell the potential for a more contractive event. And Jupiter in its fall especially will typically mean that something that we've put up on high or that's been up high will come down low. So the potential for there to be a traditional form of support in life that one loses, or where a higher status of wealth drops down to lesser status, is there with Jupiter in its fall in this position. So we mentioned that yesterday. We also mentioned that Saturn is making a square to Venus in the seventh house, and that this would place pressure on the spouse or the marriage, or that this may simultaneously involve tension surrounding the spouse, or maybe the marriage partner's income in particular has something to do with this. We also looked at Uranus conjoining the moon in the eighth house as another potential destabilizing factor right now and in the year ahead, perhaps related to things like taxes, unexpected bills, or debt. Also, the partner's money, again, is the eighth house. The moon is in Venus's sign, which takes us back to Venus in the seventh house of marriage as well. So all indications are that there's a lot of transformation happening at the roots right now. It's heavily involved with what supports you or what your foundation looks like. It's placing pressure on the marriage, and there's probably going to be a more erratic or destabilizing period where there are significant changes that will be related to spouses' income or something around income, support, base, and the marriage itself. So that was how we focused on it. And then the timeline was like a year to year and a half where these things are really intense. And I just mentioned this as a way of demonstrating, chart dynamics. So I did this with only having heard from the woman a few basic facts. One, that she was concerned about money, and her and her husband were concerned about money. She gave me both their birth charts if I wanted to look. I just chose to focus on hers. She also told me that there was some concern about taxes, but otherwise the overall inquiry was very general. So I didn't know, what her or her spouse did for a living or anything like that. I say this because as astrologers, we're faced with a lot of different reading situations. Sometimes we're looking in hindsight, which is totally normal. Some people will complain about confirmation bias. Astrology is great for looking at things in hindsight. And that's part of what we do because people are interested in the past, not just the present and the future, but why did certain things happen in the past the way that they did, or what was at work in the past from an archetypal sort of karmic standpoint. So it's important to look at the past. However, we get feedback that's really pretty special when we do any kind of predictive work, a horary chart, like am I pregnant right now? And you get actual confirmation about the prediction, or a horary chart that says, will I get the job, or will this settlement case go in my favor, or divorce settlement, or, whatever. Same thing when we make predictions. When I say, this is what's going on in the chart right now, these are where the pressures are, this is what's likely to occur. So you get actual feedback from someone, you can learn a lot. So that's why I wanted to share this today, so you can see some of the accurate statements and predictive elements of yesterday's reading and how they played out once I heard more from this client and heard about, where they actually come from and what's going on. So first of all, I will just say, remember I said this Saturn-Jupiter conjunction looks like a traditional supportive base because it's Capricorn, Saturn, right? And there's Jupiter involved, so there's some degree of abundance. However, Jupiter in its fall could mean that some element of status or support eventually kind of falls out or gives way or comes down, and that could be what's happening right now. The other thing is that the square to Venus in the house of marriage and relationships would specifically be placing pressure on the spouse or the marriage. And then we also mentioned the destabilization coming to potentially affect elements of home or family, moon, or sometimes mother, but home, family, and specifically in the 8th house, partners, assets, or resources, with the potential for some disruptive elements around things like taxes or unexpected expenses or debts or whatever. And that's acute in the next year. These transits are all happening. Saturn return, Jupiter return in its fall in the 4th house, Pluto conjoining those two planets, Saturn squaring Venus the rest of this year, Uranus conjoining the moon. So all of these are just getting really lit up. So at any rate, in fact, the husband has been the major breadwinner in a very traditional industry. I'm not going to name the industry, but it's a very old and traditional sort of American industry. And their role in the industry and their ability to get work has gone down dramatically over the past 4 years. And as that's happened, the living situation, the property, the issue of concern about ability to pay the bills or just live the life that they're used to living has gone down dramatically. So, in fact, right now, the main concern is, will my husband be able to find work? And because it's looking worse as time goes by. And then there's concerns about having to potentially greatly consolidate one's resources or life or livelihood in some way. So there's these concerns are very specific around the 8th house moon, partner's wealth, the tension in the marriage around this dynamic, Saturn to Venus, the potential, the slow disintegration of a form of abundance and support that was very strong for a long time, but is coming down right now as the natal karma of Jupiter in its fall is catching hold. So the reading was very accurate in that regard. The client was also, even though the reading in a sense was not uplifting, saying, yeah, there's about a year and a half coming where there may in fact be some contractive, deep consolidation coming, and it could be a little destabilizing, could create more tension in the marriage, etc. That the client was actually relieved to hear these things because it confirms that, yes, this is what's happening. A deeper level of acceptance can emerge. And then knowing that there's an end in sight. In a year and a half, things are going to look a lot different than they do right now. And advising to be reflective and to be as accepting as possible and to think about consolidating and to be careful of the 8th house moon's tendency toward fear and feeling of the rug being pulled out from underneath. That happens in life. And this individual she expressed, just being thankful for that reminder because it helps to recognize that, it's okay, and also this is a karmic moment too. This is a moment that we can see in the natal chart. The natal chart tells us this is something that you're here to learn from. This is part of your spiritual curriculum to at times lose that really stable, traditional kind of more exalted form of support. And sometimes the universe takes us down a few notches. It's humbling, but we learn a lot from it. And this individual, hearing this, her response was that she felt thankful to have this reminder, to get out of the anxiety body a little bit. The other thing that I find really interesting that I just want to mention here is you'll notice that the individual's sun is in the 6th house, which is a house that has to do in traditional astrology with accidents and injuries and illness and things like that. It's also a house that sometimes will just be related to really, a lot of things, but I'll just say for now that you can also see, I was going to go off on the 6th house more, I'll just stick to this. With that in mind, a place that's often associated with accidents, illnesses, and injuries, and with also seeing Mars at the midheaven in its fall as well. These are in some ways a karma of the potential for a potential illness, accidents, injuries, or debilitating conditions that come on more personally. So aside from the money, one thing that she told me that I thought I would share because it's a fascinating sort of another part of her chart that's really fascinating is that she was in a very bad horse riding accident and has never fully recovered from it. And it was very serious. I won't go into the details, but it was a very serious accident. And so you can see that she's lived her life really crippled and sort of debilitated by that accident, at least physically. But it seems as though, and I don't want to put words into her mouth, but my impression is that this event was also very potent and eye-opening event for her and sort of really changed her life trajectory, which I find is often the case with sixth house sons, that sometimes fighting on behalf of those who have been injured or have experienced misfortune, or surrounding one's life purpose with those who have experienced misfortune in service, which is a common thing that we say about the sixth house, or dealing with illnesses and just like being a little bit more in touch with the challenges of life. And it's humbling. This is often you see this theme come up with sixth house sun placements. And what to speak of Mars at the midheaven, a very public and vivid example with Mars in its fall of a big fall that she literally took that was a major accident or injury. So at any rate, her resilience has carried her in life through other events and will no doubt carry her through the events in the year ahead. So again, I hope that you enjoyed this analysis of a chart. I want to do these once in a while because I think it's good to, talk I feel like a lot of what I see in the astrology world and what I do is it's either theoretical, philosophical, or it's like, a mundane everyday forecast. But it's not as common to like just break down charts and get into craft talk a little bit. So I want to do that from time to time, and I hope that you all enjoy it. So that's what I've got for today. Let's keep this client, this volunteer in our prayers. This is someone we should all think of as a sister, and send them good wishes and good thoughts as they face the changes that are coming in the year ahead. So thanks everybody for listening, and we'll hopefully be in touch soon with another chart demonstration, probably in May at this point. Okay, take care.